Welcome into the show. Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, Chase Sr. here with you. The Birds making a couple of roster moves. We're also going to do a training camp reaction, and as part of that, the Eagles' plan without Landon Dickerson over the last couple of weeks has been unveiled. Before we talk about all of that, a programming reminder. We had the second most watch party here at the company for week one of the preseason. Tanner McKee slinging the rock against the Cincinnati Bengals. We're running it back. Preseason week 2, we'll once again do an hour pregame show like we did for week 1. Eagles, Browns. A lot of eyes going to be on that game externally outside of Eagles fans and Philadelphia because Shedeur Sanders, who really was the talk of the NFL in preseason week 1, is going to get a lot of action. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, turn on your notifications. Therefore, anytime I publish a show like this, anytime we go live for a watch party or a regular live show, you will be notified. The show begins on Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, an hour before kickoff. As for those roster moves for the Eagles, I actually think the defensive tackle who they have signed is a pretty smart move. Gabe Hall got a little bit banged up the other day at practice. Philadelphia traded away Thomas Booker to bring in Jacorian Bennett. And I'm a little bit intrigued by Justin Rogers, who the Eagles are bringing in. And he could end up being a practice squad guy, but he is a traditional nose tackle who in short yardage situations I think could help Philadelphia. And he's a former Dallas Cowboy. Wouldn't it be great for the Eagles to actually develop and maximize him after the Cowboys couldn't do that? The corresponding roster move for Howie Roseman and company, releasing long snapper Christian Johnstone. We had talked about that possibility happening because on the 90-man roster, you're not going to hold on to two long snappers. But Charley Hughlett, who missed that preseason opener, missed a few practices due to a neck injury, a little bit of a concern because he also got hurt last year, did practice today. He returned, and so the Eagles letting go of Johnstone, who they signed as an undrafted free agent out of Appalachian State. More on Rogers here, the defensive tackle who the Eagles are bringing in. He was a 7th-round pick by Dallas only in last year's draft in 2024. He was released by the Cowboys during final cuts. He was on the Bengals practice squad, the Cowboys roster, in addition to being on the Seahawks. He played his college football at Kentucky for most of his college career, and then his final year was spent at Auburn, where he started to emerge on a lot of NFL draft radars. And he is a massive, massive human being. He is not in the build of a Jalen Carter. He's more of a turbo-sized Jordan Davis, or when Jordan Davis was fat and chubby. 6'2", 337 pounds with a very girthy build. I know a lot of you will like that terminology. Plays with a really good anchor, so he is strong with his lower half. And at 6'2", nearly 340 pounds, he clogs A-gaps, especially against the run. Now, with his lower body, sometimes he's slow-footed and he just occupies a lot of real estate, but he can disengage from blockers with a strong upper body. One of the issues with him, though, despite him being 6'2", nearly 340, despite having a strong upper body, he doesn't have a lot of length for how big he is, and so sometimes he can struggle to throw offensive linemen off of him, and he can struggle to disengage. His relative athletic score coming out of college, not great at all. It was only a 1.18 on a scale of 0 to 10. 6'2", 330 at the time. 21 reps at 225 on the bench press, a vertical of 24.5, a broad jump of more than 8 feet. His 40-yard dash, 5.53. So he's pretty slow. More of those plodding defensive tackles who can just occupy a lot of space along the interior, and we'll see what he can do for this Eagles team with 2 preseason games left to go. As far as the Eagles injury report today at training camp at the NovaCare Complex in South Philly, these players did not practice. Elijah Cook's shoulder, really good training camp story up until that preseason game when he got carted off with that shoulder injury. It looked as though it was very serious. He was in tears, but there's a chance that he could return at some point soon. But with the emergence of Darius Cooper, how Anaya Smith and Johnny Wilson played, have they put Elijah Cooks on the back burner? And is he no longer going to be in the serious running to make this 53-man roster when last week we were talking about that possibility being a real one. Landon Dickerson, of course, not practicing today because of that knee injury. Kenyon Green going to miss the rest of the preseason due to a shoulder. Gabe Hall also exited practice the other day with the shoulder injury as well. The Eagles really like him at defensive tackle. I thought he flashed in that preseason tilt against Cincinnati. And then these players limited. Zach Bond back. Glad that he's limited because he's missed a lot of practice time. He's had that back contusion. A.J. Brown hamstring. Montrell Johnson hamstring. We didn't see him a lot in that preseason game. And then Byron Young groin. He had been hurt for a little while before being limited today. And we know that Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Ajomo gonna make this team. I think Gabe Hall does as well. How many defensive tackles do the Eagles have on the 53? And depending on how much they carry and how many players they carry at that spot, what other players are in the mix? That's going to be an interesting preseason and training camp storyline here as we progress toward 53-man roster cutdown day. All right, let's get to Landon Dickerson. Landon Dickerson, obviously out a few weeks because of that meniscus surgery. Philadelphia really dodging a bullet here. And today we saw what the Eagles' initial plans are at left guard. It doesn't include the former first-round pick by the Houston Texans, Kenyon Green, who the Eagles got back in addition to a fifth-rounder for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Shoulder injury for Green in that preseason game against Cincinnati. That was the same day that C.J. G.J. also got hurt with that knee. So it was Brett Toth, or Brett Tauth, as the Eagles pronunciation guide indicates, who was first up at left guard. It looks as though right now that is the plan without Landon Dickerson. Tauth is a player who has really been trying to prove himself that he belongs at the NFL level. He has talked openly about this on social media when there's been some reports about him struggling throughout practices. And he is a serviceable swing center guard interior offensive lineman. Is he the highest upside player to replace Landon Dickerson? No. But I think that he has a lot of trust from Jeff Stetland and this coaching staff because he's very serviceable, and the Eagles really put a lot of value in his positional versatility. But it also looks like Drew Kendall, the rookie sixth-round pick out of Boston College, is the backup center behind Cam Jurgens. And with that, the Eagles have moved Tauth to the guard spot. Darian Kennard also got reps at second-team left guard. And so it wasn't Matt Pryor, it wasn't Tyler Steen going from right guard to left guard and then putting in Matt Pryor at right guard. It wasn't any of the Eagles draft picks in Drew Kendall or Cam Williams, Miles Hinton. It's Tauth right now with Kennard right behind him. And what a start to Kennard's career. An underknown player on this Eagles roster, but he's been in the NFL for 3 years and he's won 3 Super Bowls. He's like the Eagles version of Robert Ory. He won 2 Super Bowls back-to-back with Kansas City, and then last year won that Super Bowl with Philadelphia. More on Dickerson here. You want to know how important Landon Dickerson is to this Philadelphia Eagles team? And let me just emphasize that. You want to know how important Landon Dickerson is to the Philadelphia Eagles? Of course, we know that he's a fantastic offensive lineman. That's why the Eagles made him last offseason the second highest paid guard in the National Football League. And he has emerged as a great leader and player. He's really become a vocal voice for this Eagles team as far as their culture. Dickerson is also extremely tough. He has played through a ton of injuries, and he's one of the toughest players in all of football. But get this, including the playoffs during the 2024 season, Saquon Barkley ran behind Landon Dickerson 97 times last year. On those 97 carries, Saquon rushed for 688 yards. That is good for 7.1 yards per carry, and 455 of those yards came before contact. What a draft pick Landon Dickerson has ended up being, as the Philadelphia Eagles took him in the second round, coming out of Alabama. At Alabama, he won the Remington Trophy for the nation's best center. But the Eagles have made this great decision to move him to guard and he hasn't looked back. He solidified himself as one of the best guards in football, and last year, so critical to the Eagles' success, and a big reason why Saquon Barkley won Offensive Player of the Year, running behind this entire offensive line, especially that left guard spot with Landon Dickerson, who was able to pave open, wide open running lanes for the Offensive Player of the Year. And yesterday, when we got that news update from Adam Schefter, I put together a Landon Dickerson prayer circle on X. Seemed as though that worked because I think the Eagles got the best news possible for Dickerson compared to what it could have been. There was early fears it could have been an Achilles or an ACL because he tore both ACLs when he was at Alabama. For it to be a meniscus, for him to now be week to week as he's going to get that surgery, huge news for the Birds. Coming up here just around the corner, Eagles training camp reaction. That's coming up next here on Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this offense may have had their best day of camp, and Jalen Hurts was cooking. I do want to tell you about this phenomenal deal, though. These Eagles Super Bowl shirts were $40. They are now on sale, ladies and gentlemen, for only $18. Lombardi Trophy on the front with the Super Bowl 59 logo on there. And then the outline of the Lombardi Trophy is New Orleans themed because the Eagles dump truck the Kansas City Chiefs in New Orleans. Use that link down below, chatsports.com/EaglesNola. And only if you use that link do you get that discount. Again, these shirts were $40, now on sale for just $18. Use our exclusive link so that Fanatics knows that we sent you, and you can save money and look good while repping the Super Bowl champs. All right, let's get to an Eagles training camp reaction, but I do want to hit on this as well because the news coming out of that open practice at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday night was the Landon Dickerson injury, and we did a couple of videos on the developments on that front right here on the channel. But another big development on Sunday night at the Link was the Eagles' recent trade acquisition, Jacorian Bennett, who Howie Roseman traded for last Monday, so 8 days ago at this point. He got some run with the ones. This is a player who, as a rookie fourth-round pick out of Maryland by the Las Vegas Raiders, earned a starting job in week one. He's had ball production. He runs very well. He's been able to shut down some of the top wide receivers in the game. He's matched up well against the likes of George Pickens and Jamar Chase. Keely Ringo in that preseason opener could not match up with Jamar Chase. He runs well. He has a smooth pedal. He has really good body control, really good awareness as far as attacking the football. And I said it right away when Howie Roseman traded for Jacorian Bennett. They want to give him a long look. At the time of that trade, about a month to go until the regular season opener against the Dallas Cowboys, he has a real shot to start opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, and he is already competing against Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson for that job. And last year, he was one of the most productive and best cornerbacks in all of football with 450-plus snaps. Darius Cooper, one of the stars of Thursday's preseason opener against the Cincinnati Bengals on the receiving end, is starting to get some work on special teams. This is notable because the Eagles are clearly thinking, okay, we can't let this guy go because there's no way if he continues to produce and pop that he's going to clear waivers so that we can bring him back to the practice squad, which means Philadelphia is probably looking at Darius Cooper as a guy who they want on the 53-man roster. But he adds more value to this Eagles team on the 53 if he can also contribute on special teams. Michael Clay, special teams coordinator, talking today, saying that he admires Cooper as a guy, how he carries himself, and Cooper is working very hard at trying to become a better special teams player. It's a completely new thing, right? At Tarleton State, I know it was FCS, but he had nearly 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns. He was arguably the best wide receiver at the FCS level. He hasn't been a gunner on special teams or having to run down the field to make tackles on special teams, and so this is new for him. And I like how the Eagles are testing him out there to see what he can do. And I like the willingness for Cooper to do that because he knows if he can contribute on special teams and be a two-way player, offense, special teams, it greatly enhances his shot of making this roster. Of note, too, over the weekend, he was also getting some time with the number ones, catching footballs from Jalen Hurts with the first-string offense with A.J. Brown out. The rookie UDFA, he could be a gem for Howie Roseman and company. Today, and obviously this has changed so much all throughout training camp, it was Adoree Jackson First up with the starters at outside corner opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, Andrew Makuba, rookie second-round pick out of Texas. First up with the ones at safety ahead of Sidney Brown. Clearly, that is still a competition. Outside corner opposite of Quinyon also continues to be an open competition. And safety and corner, really the only two concerns I have with this Eagles team. And then we round out with this. Look, it's been an up and down training camp for this Eagles offense. Today may have been the most crisp offensive practice for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they were led by the Super Bowl MVP and their franchise quarterback in Jalen Hurts. He was a perfect 8 of 8, making a couple of really impressive plays. There was a play where he evaded Jalen Carter and then hit Dallas Goedert downfield. He had a very nice sideline throw, anticipatory toss to Jahan Dotson, who continues to have a really good camp. I thought Dotson looked really good in that preseason opener against Cincinnati. And then there were multiple connections between Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. He continues to master this Kevin Patullo offense, and for what it's worth, I know it was the preseason opener, but I thought Kevin Patullo called a really good game in his first game as the play caller for this Eagles team against Cincinnati. Tanner McKee looked awesome. You saw some decent things from Dorian Thompson-Robinson as well, and now this offense is starting to heat up as we approach the start of the 2025 regular season. Cool note before we hop on out of here, attending Eagles training camp practice today, couple of old-timers in the building and 2 new head coaches. 2 Eagles greats, Deshaun Jackson, Michael Vick, on hand at the NovaCare Complex. Deshaun Jackson is the new head coach of Delaware State. Michael Vick, the new head coach for Norfolk State. They will play each other on October 30th. Going to be pretty cool, and I got to be honest, that makes me feel really, really old. Be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Always talking Eagles here on YouTube every single day on the program, but over here, the content doesn't stop. Come on now.